Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all very much for coming. I did my best to try to say hello to just about each and every last one of our residents and stakeholders who are joining us this evening for our inaugural town hall event. And the purpose of this exercise is to do as much as we possibly can to engage and connect with the community with respect to matters regarding the city of Delray Beach. Projects, policy considerations, a host of other activities and events that the residents and stakeholders should likewise be aware of, because quite frankly, there's a lot happening in Delray Beach, Florida. Much of the work, of course, we are extremely proud of, number one, and number two, the fact that we have to do as much as we possibly can to secure feedback and interest from residents and stakeholders so that we can be considered across the board. My name is Terrence Moore with the Office of the City Manager, and as I mentioned in my comments a moment or two ago, this is an inaugural event because we are making a commitment to have this exercise on a quarterly basis. So today, January 25th, 2024, the next quarterly engagement will take place Thursday, April 25th, 2024. I'll talk a little bit about what's anticipated in that regard. For this evening's exercise, we have some robust commentary coming from leadership of the City of Delray Beach, notably Fire Rescue. We have our Chief of Fire Rescue, Chief Tomey, with us this evening to provide an overview of operations to that effect, who is also being accompanied by Director of Public Works, Missie Barletto, because, of course, as many realize, we are embarking on a number of public safety-related improvements. Given that public safety is paramount for any organization, any municipality in this case, we thought we would offer that as an inaugural focus for this particular session. Additionally, growth management and development services matters are of paramount concern and observation to a number of residents and stakeholders. Therefore, we have our Director of Development Services, Anthea Gianniotes, who will offer an overview in terms of some specific considerations as well as an overall focus. Before I proceed, I'd like to also acknowledge a few other individuals who are joining us this evening. We have with us our Executive Director of the Delray Beach Community Redevelopment Agency, Renee Jadasingh, with us, tremendous partner. Delray Beach, Florida, like many other municipalities along the East Coast and South Florida, has a great deal to do relative to redevelopment activity and providing investments and opportunities in areas of the community that had traditionally been underperforming economically. Therefore, we're very supportive of the partnership we have in that regard, and she's a bit of a professional sister of mine, as I like to put it, and therefore I'm thankful that she's actually here to witness the inaugural event. We also have with us our Chief Technology Officer as well as Director of Information Technology, Mr. Jay Stacy, is with us. Jay Stacy in the house. He was actually pleased to be here. I said to him when we first arrived, Jay, you're the coolest man in the room. And he explained to me, well, Mr. Moore, I don't really have to say much this evening, so it's easy to offer that presence. We also have with us our Sustainability and Resiliency Officer, Mr. Ken Edwards. Ken Edwards will be a hallmark feature for the upcoming event in April, coinciding with Earth Day, Earth Month, during the month of April, April 25th, and I'll offer a remark or two about that as we conclude. We also have with us our Director of Communications, Gina Carter. Gina Carter is with us this evening. She helps us to arrange and facilitate, and just because we are speaking to a specific live audience at this time, this will be an educational platform really on a permanent basis. It will become available on YouTube. It will become available via our social media platform and other mediums as well. So with that, we are doing as much as we possibly can to cast a net, create an environment for people to become aware of matters, issues, challenges, concerns of the city of Delray Beach. But most notably, in my mind, it gives us a tremendous opportunity to highlight much of the good work that's being exercised across the board, or being executed across the board. We have other leadership from the Delray Beach Fire Rescue Department. We have our Fire Marshal, Travis Frankel. Don't be shy, Travis Frankel. He's in the back, cooling out, holding it down a little bit, along with one of our division chiefs, Sean Gibson, is with us as well. They, of course, are accompanying Chief Tomey, who will be kicking off the presentation shortly. We are also just joined by our illustrious Vice Mayor, Ryan Boston, is with us. He is probably the most passionate individual of the elected officials relative to town hall engagements, community outreach, and doing as much as we possibly can to connect However, he has enjoyed the support of his colleagues on a city commission to encourage us to do as much as we possibly can to engage with the community. So I'm very grateful in that regard. So with that, this is our inaugural event once again. We look forward to many more. Little housekeeping, we have some light refreshments in the back. The golf course, working on behalf of the city of Delray Beach, does a nice job in terms of culinary offerings, chocolate chip cookies and oatmeal cookies, and a little water to swallow it down, of course. Had one myself, I need to stop. We also have survey and other parting gifts for you at the table near the leadership of the Delray Beach Fire Rescue. We would like for you all to participate in surveys because, of course, we've made this commitment on a quarterly basis. We would like to do as much as we possibly can to be as effective and attentive as we possibly can. And the input of residents and stakeholders in attendance goes a long way in helping us to accomplish exactly that. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I will now turn the floor over to the panelists once again. Missie Barletto, Director of Public Works, Fire Rescue Chief Louis Keith Tomey III. I promise I would not recite your full name, but I couldn't help myself. I do this to him during the executive leadership team meetings, ladies and gentlemen, and it actually bugs him a little bit, but a little playful banter. I was quite effective in that regard because we experienced a little bit of laughter, Chief Tomey. So yes. Be a good sport.
I am.
And, of course, Director of Development Services, Anthea Gianniotes, is here. Likewise, Chief Tomey, overview, Delray
Yes.
Beach Fire Rescue Operations, to also be accompanied by Missie Barletto, relative to capital projects currently underway as well as pending. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm going to give a real quick overview of the fire department, and if my clicker will work here. You know, it worked when we tested it.
I know, we tested all of it.
Shake it. You weren't holding your mouth right.
I guess, right?
Best laid plans every time. There we go.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. So the first thing I want to talk about is the services that we provide in the fire department. So obviously we provide fire suppression. That's where we have the fire trucks, the ladder trucks. We do public education. So we're real big in preventative prevention in the fire service. We talk a lot about prevention with kids at elementary schools and high schools. We also do a lot of community outreach with smoke detectors and things like that. We do plan review, we do fire inspections, we do obviously EMS and EMS transports, we do fire investigations, special operations, which includes, we have a hazmat team that's here in Delray Beach. It's a regional hazmat team. We have a dive team. We have a rope rescue team that does high angle rope rescue. We do trench and we do collapse. We have emergency management that's located in the fire department along with our CERT program. And those are the things that we do in the fire service, plus a whole lot more. So fire rescue by the numbers, we protect about 70,000 people here in Delray Beach. We protect about $16.4 billion worth of assessed property value. Our service area is about 18 square miles. We have 6 stations. One of them is in Highland Beach. We have 160 firefighter paramedics in operations, 24 lifeguards in ocean rescue, 18 in administration, and we have 9 in fire life safety. And another important point is all of our firefighters, 99% of our firefighters are dual certified. They're both firefighters and they're paramedics. In operations in 2022, we responded to over 17,000 calls for emergency service. 14,000 of those were EMS calls, about 82% of the total call volume. 8,000 of those patients were transported to the hospital, which generated about $2.8, almost $3 million in revenue. And a little over 3,000 calls were fire related. So let's talk about our response. This is what a typical first alarm or first call for smell of smoke or pot on the stove or for a fire would be. We would send 2 engines, a ladder truck, 2 rescues, a battalion chief, and an EMS captain. That's 17 people that we need to put on scene within a certain amount of time in order for us to be in compliance with NFPA 1710. Since we do more than just that, we do emergency medical response. Most of the time, you'll only see a rescue respond to your emergencies for EMS. Prior to 2019, we only had 2 people on rescue, so the engine would also respond with the rescue because we needed the staffing to be able to run EMS calls, especially if it was a critical call. So now what happens is we don't need that engine to respond to all those calls. So the rescue with 3 people on it goes out to the call, handles the call, the engine stays back in the zone, and when the second call for that district comes in, we're not waiting for another rescue to come from a different district. That engine is going to respond to that medical call. The engine can do everything that the rescue can do. They have paramedics on it. They have paramedic equipment on it. They can do everything the rescue can do except for transport. So as soon as a second call comes into that district where the rescue is busy, the engine is dispatched. They're the closest unit. And then a secondary rescue is coming from a different district. So the engine will get there first, initiate patient care, and then the second rescue will be there for transport. Now, if the initial call comes in and it happens to be a more serious call, then we'll go ahead and send the engine as well. Example of that could be somebody who's in cardiac arrest. Okay, so we'll send that because we're going to need all 6 people to help with that critical call. And if it gets really, really bad, we'll also send the EMS captain as well to oversee and supervise those critical calls that we have. All right. Some of the new improvements that we've done over the last few years, like I mentioned before, our rescues went from 2 personnel to 3 personnel. So when we did that, we needed to have a supervisor on the truck because now the engine is not responding with them anymore. So the captain's not there to watch those crew members, right, and to be the number 1 person in charge. So now we promoted lieutenants. So there's an officer on the rescue truck now. So we have a captain that's on the engine who's in charge of the station, and we have a rescue lieutenant who's on the rescue and is in charge of that crew. We increased our overall staffing. We adjusted our staffing factor, and by increasing our overall staffing, it helped us reduce overtime. We instituted a new program, Community Risk Reduction, which is basically preventative medical care. It's part of our community outreach program. Well, we will actually respond to your home, do a home survey. We are touching into the area of community paramedicine. Well, eventually we'll have a paramedic that will respond to non-emergency type calls. They'll respond to your home. That allows for the rescue to be freed up to do more critical emergency calls. So we're working in that direction for that. And then also, of course, Fire Station 113 on Linton Boulevard, which you're going to hear a lot about from Miss Missie Barletto. And the near future, some of the things we're looking at, as you guys may know, we'll no longer be servicing Highland Beach, and with that comes a couple different things, right? We're gonna lose a ladder truck and a rescue truck that's going to go to Highland Beach. They're going to retain that as part of their contract. Also, that station is not going to be responding into Delray Beach any longer. So not only are they taking 2 of our response units, but they're leaving us with 800 calls that we have to make up. So that's one of the things that we have to look at in the near future and how we're going to do that. We have a consultant that's working with us that's looking at what is the impact of losing Highland Beach? What is it going to do to us? Losing that ladder truck and leaving us with those 800 calls. What's that going to look like? Also, what is the impact on all the new construction on Congress Avenue? As you guys, if anybody's driven down Congress Avenue, you've seen all the new construction that's going on, and there's a lot more that's coming that you don't even see, but it's coming down the pike. There's the potential for 10,000 new residents in the near future with all that construction, all that new development that's happening on Congress Avenue. So what is that going to do to our response times? Is it going to affect our response times? We don't know. That's why we have somebody working with us to help us decide what that's going to look like in the future. We may have to change zones, make them bigger, make them smaller, do other things. We may need another fire station in the future. We just don't know. So we got somebody helping us with that. And if we do need another fire station, where would it go, right? We're running out of land, number one. Number two, where strategically would it go that it would make the best sense to make the biggest impact on response times? And the last thing that I have that I'm very proud of is that your fire rescue department is a Class 1 ISO protected classification 1 fire department. What that means is that we are judged and evaluated on our service, on our fire department service. And it's a range of 1 to 10. 10 being the absolute worst, like you don't even have a fire department, and 1 being the absolute best. So there's nobody better than anybody that has a Class 1. So we are Class 1. But wait, it gets better. We are also internationally accredited agency. So we work very hard to do that. That's a very hard accomplishment to get. Chief Sean Gibson in the back is our accreditation manager. We just hired a new accreditation manager, so Sean is going to be handing that off to her. And we're right in the middle of reaccreditation right now. We're also right in the middle. Next week, we're going to be surveyed by the ISO to make sure we can keep our Class 1. So every 5 years, we have to be reevaluated to make sure that we are still the best that we can be. So what does that mean to be a Class 1 fire department and to be internationally accredited? Well, there's about 30,000 fire departments total in the United States. 411 have an ISO of Class 1. That's 0.02%. 288 are accredited. That's 0.01%. Only 112 have both, and we have both. We're the only fire department in Palm Beach County that have both. There's 2 fire departments, I believe, in Broward, and maybe 1 in Dade County that has both. But we're the only one in Palm Beach County that has both. And we're one of only 112 in the entire United States that have both. So I'm sorry, but I got to brag. We probably have the best fire department, in the state. And I can answer any questions, or if not, are we going to do questions now or later? Later. Okay. I'm going to turn this over now to Missie, and she's going to talk about our new fire station on Linton Boulevard, Fire Station 113.
Good evening. I'm Missie Barletto. I'm the Public Works Director. So I get to talk about the fun stuff. I'm sorry. Is that better? I'll start over. I'm Missie Barletto. I'm the Public Works Director. I get to talk about the fun stuff, which is where we house all these great firemen that we have in our city. On the screen right now, you can see the artist rendering of the new Fire Station 113 that we're building at 651 West Linton Boulevard, roughly right across the street from where Whole Foods is. We're replacing a single-story building that had far outlived its useful life and was no longer safe for firemen to live in. As you know, firemen are on duty 24 hours, off 72, but they are at the fire station for a significant portion of their life. So as I said, this fire station is located on West Linton Boulevard. The cost to build the new fire station is just under $11.5 million. The key features of that include a 2-story, 15,857 exactly square foot 3-bay station. It's designed to withstand a Category 5 hurricane. There are sleeping quarters there for 13 firefighters. There is, in the front of the fire station, there is ADA accessible guest parking. And this fire station will have a new emergency generator. One of the shortcomings we have in the city now is that our fire stations are not accommodated with generators, so we cannot house firefighters in those fire stations during a hurricane situation. We will be starting to remedy that situation. And that will be affecting the folks who drive up and down Linton Boulevard on a regular basis. There will be a new mast arm traffic signal going in front of the fire station, which will allow the firefighters to preempt the signal when they're out on a call. So as the fire truck pulls out into traffic, they'll be able to push a button on the dash and the light will turn for them. So that will be part of this project. So what does the inside of a fire station look like? This is the first floor architectural plan. This in blue is the apparatus bay floor, which is where all of the toys are stored. The big fire trucks, the ladder trucks, all of the special gear for the firemen. The red in this schematic, that includes the lobby, the offices for the officers, the gymnasium, the kitchen, and the dining area. And then a special thing that will be at Fire Station 113 that we don't have elsewhere in the city is a training stairwell, so that there is space in the stairwell for the firemen to hang their hoses to dry. They can practice scaling up and down the outside of it, which will keep them off my parking garages. And give them extra places to practice things that they may need to do to save our lives one day. Another thing that they will have here is a screen patio, so they can actually enjoy some outdoor time when the weather is perfect outside for that. And I am imagining we'll give them a grill. So on the second floor, as you can see, most of the occupied space is on the left side of the building. The apparatus bays are 2 stories tall. And this is where all of the officer and crew bunks, bathrooms, and their laundry room is. So this is the living spaces for the firefighters. So that's what it looks like on the inside. The training stairwell actually goes up 3 stories. The building itself is 2 stories. The training stairwell actually goes up taller than that. So this is what it will look like from Linton Boulevard, I'm sorry. It's a Art Deco designed building. It's quite lovely. This is just another view of the front side of the building. This is what it will look like in the back. So when the fire trucks come in, we have a very limited space on this lot that we're putting this fire station on. So they will drive to one side of the building and enter the apparatus bay from the back side of the building. There won't be any backing in and out of the apparatus bays. They are drive-through. So these are just the typical building elevations that you see on every architectural set of plans. This is the west side of the building. It looks like any other office building from the side, the east side, and the back side, which shows the training tower there in the center. So in all of our buildings, we also include sustainability features that are designed to do the best that we can do for the environment with the buildings that we build. In this particular building, we are installing high-efficiency plumbing fixtures, which means that we'll have reduced water use. It's an unusual thing for a fireman, but we're doing it. There will be there will be glazing on the windows that will keep the sun out to increase the efficiency of the air conditioning systems and lower that power use. External sunshades will do that same function. We've outfitted the entire inside of the building with efficient LED light fixtures, efficient HVAC, which is the air conditioning units for the building, and reflective roofing. We're using all low emission materials in the building to do our bit for air quality, and everywhere we can, we're entering natural light into the building, which helps with employee morale as much as it does with sustainability. We use anti-mold materials, and we will use a reduced irrigation water use. So we held a groundbreaking ceremony for this building on October 31st on Halloween. We did not dress in costumes. And since that time, we've been very busy putting this building together. All of the underground utilities work is done. That includes putting in new gas lines, 2 different types of gas lines, so there's redundancy for the fire department. If one service goes out, they will have the other service to depend on. So in the event of an accident or a storm, they will continue to stay up and running. We've completed the building pad. We've laid the foundation. And these are the walls going up. So this is where we're at right now. In the 3 or 4 days since we took this picture, the walls are about another third of the way up. So they're going great guns in getting the building built. So our milestones, we started this project on December 4th of 2023. Our contract completion date is March 19th of 2025. So if you want to go ahead and mark your calendars for about 14 months from now, we'll be having a ribbon cutting ceremony. And the projected completion date for the building is Valentine's Day in 2025. And that is all I have on that.
You wanted to? Oh.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So well done, Chief Tomey, Director Barletto. Excellent presentation. And as I mentioned during my introductory comments, the topics today are twofold. You just heard from the Fire Rescue Department as well as Public Works relative to the construction of Fire Station 113. And of course, the second part of the formalities involves a presentation by our Director of Development Services, Anthea Gianniotes. However, before we give her the opportunity to address you, are there any questions related to the previous topic we were able to discuss and share?
No, I think it was well done.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. Yes, ma'am.
Amazing as usual. But I just have a quick question. Why don't we have the generators in the
Actually, one other point of clarification. If I can ask anyone who has an interest in speaking to please come to the microphone. And for those of you who may require a handheld mic, we can accommodate that as well. Before you speak, ma'am, I would also acknowledge another elected official who was able to join us since we began today's town hall engagement. Commissioner Angela Burns is with us this afternoon. Commissioner Angela Burns, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Yes,
great
ma'am.
presentation, Tennille DeCosti. I just have one question. You mentioned, Missy, that we do not have generators in every fire station. I just want to know why. Is it money, or we just don't have the equipment? What are the reasons?
So a lot of our fire stations are older, out-of-date buildings that these types of accommodations were not actually made at the time that they were built. So we have attempted to update the buildings where it's possible on those sites. Some of the fire stations have a single power source generator, but they don't have the kind of redundancy that is needed to be able to efficiently provide a safe haven for the firefighters during a hurricane. One of the things that I neglected to include in this presentation was all of the planning effort that went into creating this building plan in advance, working with architects and the firefighters themselves, so that we're looking at programming these new buildings as we build these buildings. There's another fire station that's coming along right behind this one, a new police department. We're looking at ensuring that these buildings will be large enough and safe enough to sustain our activities in the city here for the coming 30 years.
Thank you. Mr. John Miller, I believe you had a question. Okay, very well. Any others before we proceed with the next portion of our presentation? Ms. Hill. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, good evening. And thank you for the town hall meeting. This
Thank
is
you.
a wonderful best practice. And thank you for the wonderful presentations as well. My question has to do with the training and education of the firefighters. I see that congratulations to Delray for being an international accredited fire station. I would just like to ask if you would give us some examples of what some of the certifications are, especially with the recent sinkhole in Boynton Beach. Just want to know if the firefighters are trained for all of these unexpected sort of natural disasters now. Thank
Sure.
you.
So we pride ourselves in the fire department here in Delray for our training programs. We have our training program is second to none. We are lucky enough to have a robust budget for that so that we can do in-house training and that we can send our firefighters out for training. We go to Palm Beach State Fire Academy to do a lot of our live burn training, a lot of our fire department training, because we don't have a training facility here in the city. But to answer your question more specifically, our special ops station has specific disciplines that they have to be certified in. So you have to be a hazmat technician in order to be on the hazmat team, and then you have to keep that certification up through recertification classes and things like that. Same thing with our rope rescue. There's several different types of levels of rope rescue that are certifications that they have to maintain and keep that up. Same thing with extrication. Not everybody can just grab the jaws of life and start cutting up a car. They have to go through what's called a VMR certification so that they know how to cut the car, where to cut the car. As a lot of you guys know, you cut the car in the wrong spot and now you've been electrocuted or you set off an airbag or something like that you don't want to be set off. And as for the sinkhole, we're not trained in that kind of rescue, the trench rescue. I mentioned that before, but we're not trench, right? No. So that's one discipline that we don't have. But with our special ops teams, we're skilled enough to get there and to stabilize the scene until we can have another unit that is trench rescue respond. So I believe Boynton is trench. I believe the county is trench. So if that was to happen here, you'd still be in safe hands with us until those guys got here. Okay?
Any others prior to us proceeding to the next portion of our program? It looks like it's Miss Deborah Walker.
Hi there.
Hello.
Missie mentioned that we got a second station going in after this one. How are we paying for these?
What a great question. So the next station that is in the fire department master plan to be replaced would be Fire Station 112 that's on the Barrier Island, just across the bridge off of Atlantic Avenue by where the Opal Grand is on Andrews Avenue. That particular fire station is everybody who lives near the ocean knows, a salt environment is particularly difficult on buildings. That particular fire station is not in imminent danger in any way, shape, or form, but it is ready to be replaced and updated. We have applied to the state of Florida for a resiliency grant that would cover 50% of the cost of that new fire station. We expect that will also be in the neighborhood of about a $12 million expense. So we've applied to the state to pay for half of that. because it is in a flood zone, and other cities, well, at least one other city, has been successful in getting that grant for replacement of a fire department for their city. So we are looking at that. We should know by the end of this particular legislative session whether or not that that fire station, that grant application is going to be successful. We have been, as a city, Delray Beach has been extremely successful in getting state appropriations and grants from the state government for doing a wide variety of the infrastructure projects that we have ongoing. In that vein, the stormwater projects, which this would, interestingly enough, because it's a location, this would qualify as a stormwater project. We so far have gotten about $45 million of state money into the city to help offset the cost of those projects. So, and as you know, the legislature is in session right now, and is it okay if I make an announcement?
Yes, please.
So we just heard from Representative Simon Gossett, just as this meeting was getting started this evening, that she's secured an additional $750,000 in a legislative appropriation, which is not the same as a grant. That's a direct infusion of money from the legislature into our city for doing our upcoming construction project on North Swinton Avenue. So that's expected to start in May or June of this year, and it's very exciting for us.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Any other questions prior to us initiating the next part of the presentation? Mr. Steve English, it looks like. If you could, please.
I'm just curious with that. Steve English, I live right off of Swinton. That's why I didn't know what the construction project. Can you expand on that? Because I know we had a whole controversy about the tree canopy there a couple of years back about cutting those down. Will there be any erosion from the tree canopy with this construction project?
On the North Swinton project goes from Lake Ida Road. The initial phase of it, we're doing it in two separate phases. The initial phase goes from Lake Ida Road to Northwest 17th Street. That will be done in the first phase, which is coming up this summer. Because North Swinton is a collector road and it has a tremendous amount of traffic on it, especially during season. We're planning on doing all of the construction work for this project in off-season. So they'll be done May to November for phase one that goes, like I said, from Lake Ida Road to Northwest 17th Street. And then phase two will be Northwest 17th Street to Northwest 25th Court, which is the city limit. And that will be done the following year in May to November of 2025. So those two sections are coming up. This project includes underground utilities improvements, stormwater drainage improvements, sidewalk, lighting, and roadway reconstruction in several places. So every project that we do of this type, we do everything we can to minimize the number of trees that are impacted. In this particular project, there will be some trees that are going to have to come out of the way of the new infrastructure that's coming in. For the most part, those trees are already in bad shape and would probably not be surviving anyway. But we will be replacing them with healthy trees and at any place that we can in the right of way. But I do think that there is still maybe a net reduction in the number of trees. I'm guessing, so don't hold me to it, but I think it's 6 trees or less that will be lost as a result, and that's a pretty long corridor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. English. Yes, sir.
How much was that appropriation?
It was $750,000.
Thank you. And at this time, Director of Development Services, Anthea Gianniotes, will offer her presentation regarding matters pertaining to planning and zoning, historic preservation, building, support services, and other ancillary considerations. Just before you conduct your presentation, I'd also like to acknowledge the arrival of our City Attorney, Ms. Lynn Gellin, is with us this evening as well. Lynn Gellin, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Ms. Gianniotes, if you would, please.
Okay. I'm just looking at the screen behind you, sir. I'm sorry.
On that note, I will take the seat.
I'm sorry. This one is further away. I'm getting older. So the first thing that I want to tell you about is when I became the director, the picture on the left was how permits were processed in the city. There were these wooden boxes that somebody made at some point, probably from Public Works or one of the folks in my department. And I would walk in every morning and I would go past the boxes to see how full they were. And then I would pull the first one in the row to see the date on it, and that let me know how far back we were in reviewing permits. And the stamp on the folder and the sticky note that's stapled to it is how things were routed. And the green screen is still with us temporarily, but this is sort of how projects had been processed for years. And we were, I was fortunate, IT brought on Jay Stacy. We were ready for some changes. Now, you can still process your permit using paper in the city. And the way that will work is you come to City Hall and you drop off your application, and it goes through zoning, and it goes sometimes over to Missie's team at SOC for engineering and drainage review. Then it comes back to City Hall, and it gets structural, plumbing, electrical. Fire comes and picks it up and takes it over to the downtown fire station to do their review, and then it comes back to us. And then ultimately it gets through mechanical. Oh, and Hassan might need to see it, Hajimari, over at utilities, and so then it goes back over to SOC. And every time the permit changes building locations, it takes another day there and another day back. And then if you want to pick up your permit, you get a receipt, and then you go over to the lobby, to the utility billing window, and you pay for your permit, you come back. So some folks are still choosing that option. We're here for you if that's how you want to do it for the time being. So what we have managed to implement, and we are still building the system in its full version on the back end, but what you would see now pulling a permit is you can apply for a permit online anywhere. It will go through the zoning stop first. I'm the one who's decided that it stops there first because we are so very busy that if you can't build the building where you think you're going to build it, we're not going to take it through to drainage and structural and everyone else. So I've put that stop in place, mostly just to manage the workforce that we all have. And then from there, all at once, it goes to all of those reviewers onto an electronic dashboard. They can review the project. They can put in their comments as they get a chance. It goes into processing, and processing is where we calculate your fees, the transportation impact fees that we send to the county, the parks fee. We collect a $500 parks fee per residential unit or hotel room, things like that in your permit fee for the review. And then you get an email that says your permit is ready, and you can pay online and print it out at your house. So we started launching the review in November of 2022. We started with 5 different permit types, just to make sure we were learning it too. Keep in mind we were trying to figure out how to put in the comments, and you play a little bit of tennis with it. I'll tell you that if you have any permit problems. So by February, we expanded that to 12 permit types. In May, all of the types, we still kind of demolitions are a little bit different. I'm not sure that we have those online yet. It's the only one that wasn't up in May. We did a ton of outreach with the help from our Director of Communications, and also helping sculpt the messages that our applicants receive when they're sort of at home trying to get a permit. And at this point, there's a self-service online portal. You can see your plan reviews, you can resubmit your changes, you can check the status. You can even now schedule inspections and see the results, and you can pay for all of this online, and you never have to leave. So that's a green initiative as well, your house. So here's how this has worked. The green line, if you can see it, are e-plans. The blue are the paper permits. So you'll see in May of 2023, when we did the full launch, our customers found it very quickly, and that was the first month that the number of e-plan permits superseded the number of papers. So in May, we had 291 e-permits that month, and we had 248 that were submitted on paper. By the end of last year, it had completely changed. We had 546 e-permits submitted in December and only 139 on paper. And if you haven't been doing the math, I just want to point out that the building department is taking in 500 to 700 permits each month. And all of those permits generate inspections. And so annually, there's anywhere between 20 and 25,000 inspections as a result of those permits. So we're busy. We're busy. The new software also gives us a dashboard where we can check how many permits have come in, what is the average review time that's happening. We can do sort of checkpoints, where are they getting stuck, things like that. And so I'm happy to tell you that 98% of the permits that come in have their comments done in less than 2 days. And just to be clear, this is not just a development services. All those people in that review chain, that includes Public Works has got their drainage, engineering, public right-of-way, maybe you have to give a dedication review. The fire department is on the review chain as well, as is utilities. Those are the other ones outside of the disciplines that are housed within my department. And of course, IT, making sure that the system is working as we continue to build it out over time. So one of the questions that we get a lot is like, if you thought you were the last person moving to Florida, I'm sorry to tell you that you're not. So where is the development happening? How many more people have been coming in? Things like that. So in the last 5 years, you can see this is where residential, this isn't everybody, but this is where residential development has happened. It's been largely in the east. And I will tell you that more of it is single family than you would imagine. We see a lot of buildings that change on Congress, and we're seeing downtown grow and change. But a lot of it is a single family development that's happening. So I was trying to estimate this. This is something of a moving target because I try to pull the COs and they move and they change. But so the snapshot that I had, we had about, in the last 5 years, approximately about 1,400 new units were built. But they were not always built on empty land, right? We're Delray, so we're growing through redevelopment. We're not paving pastures or natural areas. We're all growing through redevelopment, which is its own sort of painful, process for all of us. But so it's really not that many because it's more like 1,100 new units altogether. So it's anywhere, between 150 and 225 new units a year. The good news is that your adult children are not going to live with you forever, because we have a pretty robust workforce housing program. And I did want to touch on the number of ways that the city has been trying to ensure some affordability. This has been going on for a long time. This isn't even close to the number of units that are in the city. Neighborhood and community services. I saw Sammy Walters back there with some of his team from housing. On their website, there's a great list of the different units that actually have, or the different projects that have workforce units in them that are available. So what's come in more recently at the intersection of West Atlantic and Congress, it's a large project. 73 of those units in Aura are workforce housing. This is where it gets a little weird. Okay, so the SOFA project is actually a unified site that took over 3 different blocks downtown. The last one was built within 5 years, which brought 9 more, but those projects together had 28 in them. Atlantic Crossing, the second phase, is where the workforce housing is. It's under construction now. Right now, they are bringing 25 in. They have CO'd a lot of their buildings, but 25 units are coming in phase 2. The ribbon cutting for Island Cove was last week. That is a housing authority project that the CRA also financially participated in. 60 beautiful new units there around Southwest 10th. And then a lot of what has come in is single-family infill. There's a lot of partner agencies working hard on that. There's a community land trust that remains active in the city. The CRA brought in 30 units just through their projects in the last 5 years. And Habitat for Humanity is still building units here and there throughout the city. And then Parks of Delray, which is on Congress, is in their first phase. I'm counting some of these, even though they're not finished, but they're actually under construction. So there's no turning back now. They're coming. There's 42, and they're in various stages of completion. So that takes us to 270. In addition to this, the planning team does all kinds of things trying to plan for this long-term growth. We have a number of studies and initiatives. What we focus on is prioritized by your commission. There's a lot of work to do, and it's those 5 leaders that decide the priorities for the next era that we tackle. So the most recent effort that's nearing completion is the bicycle pedestrian master plan that's taking its final form now. We do a host of land development regulation amendments to try to address changes and needs. And then just in terms of the people that come and want to do something different with their property, in the last year, this isn't a 5-year build, this is the last year, we had 939 individual applications that the team processed. There were 90 site plans. Some of those were new buildings. I'm going to show you those in a minute. The rest, some of those were changes to existing buildings. We had 45 different historic certificates of appropriateness. That's everything from someone's house to the Sunday Village project you see taking shape near the center of the city. Rezonings, annexations, and then 576 zoning certificates of use. That's an administrative process, but what they're tied to is a new business that's going into a space. So they go from, can I put my business here? They get that approval, and then they go over to support services and pay their business tax and hopefully open a successful business. And doing all of that work for my team means 68 different commission and board hearings. Most of which Mr. Long is at, so he's there for all of them. So just a quick peek at what got approved. Now here's the difference between the previous slide that I showed you with those numbers, is that these are approved. I don't know when they're coming. I don't know if they're coming, but this is what could be coming soon. So we had this project was built on Casarina Road. It's a 3-unit townhouse. In this case, it replaced a 5-unit building. So the building itself is probably bigger, but it's actually a net loss of 2 units on that site. This is the Delray Ridge. This is on the northeast corner of North Swinton and Northeast 22nd. This is under construction now. There'll be 14 new single-family residences there. This is on Southwest 4th, next to the Weidman building. This is coming in mixed use. The ground story has a retail shop. There's 9 residential units in the upper levels, 2 of which will be new workforce housing units. The city offers a slight increase in density in exchange for income restricting some of the units. So that's how that's happening. Docks finally got designated. Docks got designated with a really big addition next to it, but there it is. So that's a pretty exciting new project, breathe life into a beloved historic building with a lot of new energy in the office that would be coming in next door. It has the Dunkin' Donuts would go away and it would be replaced by this building in some civic open space. A lot of new street trees, greenery. Atlantic Grove is in the process right now of filling a gap in that project. They'll be building 14 new townhomes. One of those is deed restricted as a workforce housing unit. Missionary Baptist Church has some improvements coming their way. Construction of a new 1-story building with a new sanctuary office and a nursery. That's on Southwest 5th. There were a couple of new banks on West Atlantic that are coming in. You've got Regents Bank and then a 5th and 3rd coming at the intersection of Military. And Galaxy Marble is putting a new 1-story building as a headquarters on Congress. So these are the larger projects that were approved. These are more complicated to build, and this has not been submitted for building permit, but it's approved. And this is what gives Chief Tomey heartburn. So this one is a residential building that's proposed to be squeezed in between 2 existing office buildings. it would have 271 residential units with amenities. 55 of those units would be income restricted. And then this is the Alexan. This one is further along. It's been in for permits. And that is a 267-unit multifamily building. And this one would have 20%, 54 of the units would be income qualified. In addition, this project donated dollars into the city's housing trust fund, which the city uses to help with downtown payment assistance and other things, which is yet another way to get families into affordable housing. And then I think this is the last project that was approved in December of 2023. This is downtown. This is the Swan. The Swan is a 5-story mixed-use project. It's got 165 units in it. 33 of those would be workforce housing units. And in case you're counting, if all of these projects build out, that's 145 more workforce housing units that get added to the city's stock. So I'm going to bet your first question is traffic, but who has a question? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Director Gianniotes. So any questions regarding development services related subject matter? Yes, sir. Mr. Miller, I think we'll begin with you, then followed by you, sir.
I have a list. First on my list, Chief, are you taking bids for those clickers that change the light signals? Because I want to get in line for that. Second of all, so many things here. Who manages the workforce housing apartments or units that are out there? Because there's a lot that you hear about, okay, this is workforce, this is workforce, this is workforce. I've had the experience where I tried to call for a teacher friend of mine. No, we don't have any of that. We don't know what you're talking about, so forth and so on. So I'm just kind of curious on who manages that or polices that.
So it depends on who's offering it. Obviously, the Housing Authority, so the Island Cove project is a Housing Authority project, and they handle all of the income qualifications for that. We don't have a role in that. I'm going to do my best to answer, but I'm also looking at Ferline Mesidor in the back and Sammy, so they can shake their heads, nod their heads, come on up, whatever. The ones that are deed restricted, and sometimes like the Community Land Trust units are because they've been accommodated to build on a smaller lot, which otherwise wouldn't be developable. So the homeowner, the first-time home buyer has to be qualified, and it's confirmed by our neighborhood services department that they meet the income eligibility requirements before they can buy the house. Then the rentals, like Aura, is a rental. Yeah. They have a restricted covenant that they're supposed to offer 73 of those units for income qualification. They submit a monthly report to the city that indicates the income eligibility and qualifications. In my opinion, I think one of the shocking things for most of us, when you look at what 80% area median income, what someone is allowed to charge that rent, I can tell you that it's quite high. I had slides from a couple years ago, so I didn't have the most up-to-date information, so I didn't put them in there. But it doesn't appear to be much of a break when it's workforce, quite frankly. They're very close to market rate. Once you're in that 80 to 120 AMI, which is the higher end of what we can do. The very low is really where our partner agencies are filling those gaps, and then there's the other ones in between. So if you want to see the monthly reports, then you would reach out to Neighborhood and Community Services. I'm sure they would have those available.
Okay. No, thank you.
And if I may interject for just a second. So as part of your presentation, you acknowledged a couple times the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services. Likewise, I acknowledge our Director of Neighborhood and Community Services, who's since been able to join us as well. Sam Walthour and members of his team are in the house as well. So in the event there are some other specific questions in that regard, they'll be able to assist and point you in the right direction post-haste.
Great. Thank you. Another quick question. Is the city looking at annexing potentially land west of the city either for additional land for infrastructure or reserve well fields. Obviously, saltwater intrusion can be an issue. Our existing well fields, I think, are west of 95, but, you know, is there any plans for that?
I have very limited knowledge on this because I'm not the utilities director, but I will say that the utilities department is in the process of identifying additional well sites within the city limits. So there are a number of wells that are on the Murakami site. There are 9 raw water wells that are on this site where we are tonight. There are a number of different ones. If you go on South Swinton Avenue, right in front of the Swinton Operations Complex, affectionately known as SOC, much to the chagrin of the fire department, who thinks that should be Special Operations Center and theirs. Anyway, that fenced enclosure there, that is actually a raw water well. There's another one further down next to the railroad track in Pioneer Park, also on the corner of Swinton and South 10th. Yes. Okay. So actually, we do not have a big problem right now with saltwater intrusion, but as climate change happens and there's more and more high water levels from the ocean, it may become a problem at some point in the future.
Meanwhile, there's no imminent direction regarding annexation collaborating with Palm Beach County for the reasons Ms. Barletto just stated. There's not an immediate concern in that regard. However, we are working diligently to maintain a watchful eye. However, in terms of annexation for that purpose or any other pending considerations, not the case.
Great. Last thing, and then I'll sit down and let somebody else talk. So I've noticed with construction comes a lot of clear cutting. I would really encourage the city to try and boost your tree preservation. You know, the gentleman up here is speaking along Swinton Avenue, but, you know, you drive by Lake Ida and Swinton right now where they're putting in the Caisson project, and it's clear cut. And there was, you know, a 60, 70-year-old oak there. It's no longer there. If we can encourage developers to work with the existing, you know, landscaping that's there to a certain extent, at least for legacy trees, that would be greatly appreciated. And then I'm going to go sit down. Is there anything on?
Just before you go on to another topic, so I actually think I'm glad you raised this because I don't think that it is understood. Actually, the city's tree preservation ordinance is quite aggressive. I know you don't feel that way, but so there's a couple things I want to explain. Is that the ordinance says try to work around the trees that are there. It absolutely says that. So this is part of why I think it's really important on the review boards that there is a landscape architect. Historic, I think, has a pretty strong landscape architect right now, which Mr. Miller is serving on as well. Because, you know, from staff's perspective, we will encourage and make comments in the technical review all day long, but ultimately, if they choose to utilize, the code says keep it in place, then it says reuse it on the site. Okay, and by the way, all of you that think we should move trees around, that is a lot more complicated than you think. Trees like where they are. They've grown healthy because of where they are. And so you can't just pick it up and move it over here. There's a tremendous amount of root pruning that happens. It is not, you know, and then the whole thing is hat racked. So it's not as simple as moving it and still retaining this beautiful tree that you picked up and moved around. And then the final thing is if you absolutely cannot do it, you have to mitigate by planting enough trees to make up the diameter of breast height that you removed. And if you really don't want to do that, and I'm not picking on them, it's a unique industry. So the car dealers, for example, really don't want to plant a cluster of trees somewhere else because they don't want things falling on their products. And so they will usually opt to pay into the tree trust fund that Mr. Ken Edwards is overseeing, using those dollars to plant new trees. But the amount that we require is so great that they're usually putting tons of trees on the site, and then they still owe that check into the tree trust fund for the city. So I think that it becomes really important that for those legacy trees or those larger trees that we try to have the boards push harder back against that. And then, of course, single family is a whole different ball game. Single family is largely basically preempted by the state at some level, that if you are building an addition and a tree is in the way of your pool that you want to put in, which is a reasonable use to have behind it, if you have the minimum number of trees on your single family home, there's not a whole lot we can do to stop you. You have so what I always say to Commissioner Boylston is that we are a very strong property rights state in a very strong property rights country. So particularly in the neighborhoods, it becomes very difficult. We've talked about whether we should increase the minimum number of trees that's required on our single-family lots. That we could do to get more trees planted for the next generation. But it's very difficult to stop at least the single-family changes if it's within the setback of what they want to build.
And three come to mind real quick. So it's 22nd and Swinton, and then Banyan Court out west, and then Sunday Village. And it's not so much that they're not planting new trees, that's great, but if you're removing a 30 or 36 caliber or inch, oak
right.
tree that's been there for 80 years, the amount of carbon that's sequestered, the length of time it would take to grow that
right.
tree back, that's what's being lost in our neighborhoods. And
right.
so that's, and I think on 22nd and Swinton, they paid $5,000 to the tree fund, and they clear cut the whole lot.
Right.
So that was my concern. Thank you.
Right.
And Mr. Miller,
that's great.
during my introductory comments, I talked a little bit about the format for the town hall engagements on a quarterly basis. So the next activity to take place Thursday, April 25th, 2024, the principal focus will be sustainability and resiliency. So you would be interested to have a better sense of knowledge of what the city is working to accomplish prospectively to get to the place in which we need to achieve. So some of that subject matter will likely be a topic of discussion during that time as well. Likewise, something to look forward to, as my interest is to encourage your attendance. Any other questions or concerns regarding development services? You, sir, and then you, ma'am. Sir, please.
I want to thank John for bringing up trees. It is a serious concern of mine, certainly, and I think all things considered, if a tree had a choice of not being moved or being sawdust, it would take the move.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Anthea, that was a fabulous presentation. Thank you. I think you made it clear to all of us. I have two questions. One is, when you talk about workforce housing
mm-hmm.
and those numbers, are those going to be actually as-built numbers, or will they be in lieu payments that will be moved elsewhere, and you don't have that many units in those projects?
That is a great question. So in the past, there was usually an opportunity to pay a set fee, and that would go into the housing fund, that then my partners in Neighborhood and Community Services use that funding for a lot of ways to achieve, workforce housing for families, whether it's downtown payment assistance, other things. There has been, since I've been with the city, the commission most recently has expressed a greater concern for having the units embedded in the projects. And so most of the density increases that are approved, Aura being one, are required to provide them on the site. The SOFA projects that I put up was a mix. I think 9 units went into the trust fund, but it was, I think, almost $1.4 million that went into the trust fund. And then, of course, the CRA's projects are houses that went to people, and so we have our partner agencies. But their most recent direction, at least pretty consistently in the last few years, has been built on site in the project.
I think that's a great idea. Otherwise, you kind of end up with ghettoization. The other question is, as you know, Anthea, because you've been involved with the city for 20 years or so, our LDRs have been piled up one on top of another on top of another, and you try to get them all to be interconnected because one policy impacts another. Is there any plan to simplify that and try to get it back to sort of a square one in terms of understandability, not only by staff but also by developers?
So the downtown code has had the most attention over the years. I mean, it's the downtown's the heart of our city. It was the key to the revitalization effort that we've been under for 20 years. That code was completely revamped in 2015. So that section of the code, I think, has the most criteria related to new development, right? Other parts of the code, are on what I call the Santa Claus list of needing more attention. So it depends on which part of the code. The tree preservation ordinance was revamped, and the fees were raised pretty significantly, I think, a couple of years ago. So it's a little bit hit or miss. I'm looking at the city attorney because she lives this pain with me. So we're trying to figure out why something is okay or not okay. We do it on a daily basis. If you go to planning board, there's amendments that go through. We most recently revamped Chapter 2, which is the development approval process, to try to consolidate actions into a more holistic review, which takes less staff resources and time, but it also makes sure our residents have a more cohesive view of the development, and they're not sort of splitting the density over, pay attention to the density over here. It doesn't look like anything, but the site plan is over here at Sprab, and you already got the density, so now you have to let me have this site plan. We've made a lot of moves towards consolidating that review process, and that was the big undertaking of the last year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. I believe you had a question as well, if you would please.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Rosen, and I celebrated my 2-year anniversary as a Delray Beacon. I'm grateful to be here, and I live in a community called Shady Woods, which is off of Linton, just east of Military. So a couple of issues that I've noticed since I've lived here for 2 years. Number one, I have to, turning left out of Shady Woods 1, there isn't the stoplight. The stoplight is at Shady Woods 2. And I've noticed a severe increase in the speed of traffic that is coming west on Linton. Anywhere from drag racing to young kids. I have 2 20-somethings, so thankfully they don't drive like idiots, but there are a lot of idiots on the road. So I have noticed an increase in the speed of those drivers once the light west of our entrance and exit turns green. It's a danger zone. I mean, it really is. So that's number one. And it takes a very long time to get out into the middle and then to be able to make that full left turn to start going east on Linton. The other thing I've noticed, again, I've been here now for 2 seasons, that the bottleneck is off the charts. And I have driven east on Linton all throughout the day, from early morning at 7:45, 8 o'clock, 8:30, midday, late morning, early afternoon, late evening, you get the point. Mm-hmm. And what I'm struck by, and I moved here from the Midwest, from the suburbs of Chicago, and I grew up learning how to drive the side streets and the alleys. My dad taught me very well. So I've learned about Holman, and I've learned about 10th Street. However, I'm curious as to why the lights are not in sync. I don't understand that. The robustness of all the technology, which is extraordinarily impressive. I'm old school, so I still like using a lot of paper at the ripe old age of 57. Mm-hmm. I do understand the robustness of the technology, but at some point the technology of the lights has got to come up to 2024. In addition, with the addition of the new fire station, which is going to, again, make the traffic on Linton going east and west even more insane, where's the planning for somebody to have some sense that you are not moving traffic and you are getting bottlenecked, and you're getting bottlenecked trying to turn right into Target. You are getting bottlenecked for a lot of the drivers who are not moving over to turn left to the BMW or the Mercedes dealership. I know a lot of these are out-of-town drivers because, believe you me, I notice. And so that's the fault of maybe the snowbirds or whatever. But what are we doing to move the flow of traffic? The other thing is, secondly, when I was coming here tonight, and I did use Homan, which I think is a great street, there was an ambulance behind or somewhere. And why aren't there flashing lights at intersections to indicate that there's an ambulance, a fire truck, anything, so that people can visually see instead of looking all the way around? I couldn't see. I mean, granted, there were trucks or cars that were taller than me, but I am a safe driver. I'm an aware driver. I hear. But why can't you put in a flashing light at most intersections, especially the one at Homan, that indicates that there is, that to move? I've seen so many drivers that do not move over. I'm shocked by that. So why is that the case? Even at Linton and Congress, there's no flashing light if there's an emergency, and nobody moves. Why is that? Also, why aren't there cameras for everybody that goes right through the lights? I tell my kids as well as myself, as soon as that light turns green, do not go, because you can get killed. So why aren't we proactively putting in measures to, number one, be punitive? It would be you'd make a lot of money, believe you me, especially in the late fees, because I'm sure a lot of people won't even pay those bills. But what are you doing to really control Linton Avenue?
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, so we're going to do our best.
Okay.
So the first thing that is kind of weird to understand in Florida and Palm Beach County, so I'm going to start at a macro level, and I don't know, Missy, if you want to jump in on some of the light stuff, is that we have a distinction between what's a local road, what's a county road, and what's a federal road. And we do not control the county roads, and Linton is a county road.
Okay.
So the way that the planning for all of this works is that the county has a long-range transportation plan where they take all the municipalities and their ultimate build out their future land use maps, and they model it, and then they say this road's going to have to grow from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. This lane, what is the ultimate thing? Now, here's the part where it's Florida, when I said strong property rights state. So let's say that you're going to build your building, and your trip count says that you need to widen a road. But you're only building this part in front of it, right? You're not going to widen part of it. So Florida law allows you to pay your proportionate fair share and build your project, and you give the money to the county or the city, depending on whose road it is, and when eventually everybody chips in enough that we can widen the road, we widen it. So that's not great necessarily for traffic all the time.
No.
But that's the way that it works in Florida. We can't actually say no. Now, what happens with any development is the county reviews the traffic, not the city, because and then they send us a traffic performance statement that will say this project is within traffic performance standards. Or they'll say this project requires a right turn lane, and that the developer will have to put in, right, because they've got to make the right turn lane. But in terms of light timing, in terms of the actual mass infrastructure on things like Linton, Congress, all of the big arterials, those are county roads, and we do coordinate with them on their improvements.
Actually, all signalization is handled by Palm Beach County. The city doesn't do any of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awful. And I understand the building, the new developments. You showed us all these pretty pictures. on Congress. Did you have any idea what that is going to do with the traffic at Congress and Linton? So how is it possible that you're approving buildings that are right from the jump going to increase traffic flow at Congress and Linton?
Right. Well, that is
without the foresight of what is the collaboration process between local and county government to improve traffic flow?
Okay, so what happens when these big buildings come in is they're required to submit a traffic study both to the city and to the county. And the county is the one that reviews it and tells us whether that big regional transportation model that they have, determined the ultimate build out of all of our roads over time, whether or not there is an impact. And when the lower boards and ultimately the city commission looks at this development, they're looking for the traffic performance statement. And most of the time, I'm trying to think of any time that the county has said no. The developer has that piece of paper from the county that says they have reviewed the development and it is within the standards. And at that point, it becomes a little difficult for the city to say no to a developer because they have competent, substantial evidence that has been reviewed that says these roads can handle the ultimate build out. Now, are you going to go from Atlantic on Congress all the way down to Linton Boulevard in the same 15 minutes you've always done it? It might be 20 now. But that doesn't mean the road is failing. It might be 25. The road still is not failing. So that's sort of where we are. A lot of the time it's reactive. What our team at the city is looking at, Missie's team in particular, she's Public Works is where the engineering department is. They're looking at as you turn in, how are the pedestrian, what's happening on the private side of the property line to make sure that that works safely. We collaborate with our partners at the county, but your perception of it taking long or your perception of having to turn right and then do a U-turn left, believe it or not, that is actually the safer movement. I personally also find it irritating, so I'm with you.
I love the U-turn.
But
I think it's great.
That's, the traffic sort of configurations that are determined for those large arterials and collectors.
I just think it's a little backwards to build a new development and then worry about the traffic signal after if it passes, quote unquote. And if anybody were to just sit there from 7:30 to 5:30 with a bag of popcorn, maybe at the corner of Congress and Linton, anybody would be able to see that there's a problem, that there is a real problem. So I do, believe me, I respect and I appreciate all what you're doing, but as a resident now who uses that road every single day, I find it hard to believe that.
It's because those people don't drive the road.
Yeah, I know. Because
No.
they live in the big houses. I know.
Thank you. And
You're welcome.
a principal purpose for a town hall engagement is to do as much as we possibly can to listen, learn about the specific experiences as residents and stakeholders. We do as much as we possibly can to take that into account because as the ladies and gentlemen on the panel clarified through the process of their various presentations, there are separate jurisdictional considerations that must be applied in this regard. State of Florida, county, Palm Beach County, and frankly, the legal abilities cities have and does not have. And I think that was touched upon quite well. But nevertheless, we take this information, do what we can, and achieve collaboration to the extent we possibly can, legal and otherwise. So thank you very much for that input.
I mean, the best part that we can do is we're trying to get everything as interconnected as we can, so it disperses the trips as much as possible and doesn't require those big roads for every trip. We're also moving, Public Works has a robust, multimodal improvement. We're eventually going to need a downtown train station. There's a lot to be done for transportation, but those large roads are not going to get better. I'm confident with that.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Boylston, I believe you had a hand. If you would come to the podium, please. podium, please, so that we can be heard and recorded.
Just because it's timely and relevant, when these developments are built, there's impact fees. 97% of those impact fees go to the county. Only 3% stay here in the city. So those impact fees are supposed to address the exact issues that you're talking about. The county then can use those funds anywhere in the county. Unfortunately, they don't use them right back in the municipality. They use them in the unincorporated areas. Those unincorporated areas, they use them in streets because they're continuing to build out west, right? So there is a bill right now. It passed the first phase. It's, I think, SB 668 or 688. Please show support for it. Write letters. It failed last year. It's back this year. And it gives us the opportunity to keep those dollars here. Any city that has done a bike ped master plan, a curbside master plan, and a mobility master plan would be able to try to keep those funds, or a portion of bigger, larger than 3% funds, here in the city. We've done that work. So we're ready for when this passes. We want to keep those funds here, because the way I look at it, they're using those funds to build out west. And where does that west traffic need to get to? It needs to get to 95. It wants to get to our downtown. It wants to get to our shops on Linton, but it needs to get to 95 because people need to go to work and they need to go to school and they need for transportation. So not only do we not get the funds from the project that was built in our city, but then the funds are being used for west sprawl, and then we get hit with that traffic too. So this would be the time. I mean, if this passes, this is a game changer for all municipalities, and it's up there right now being considered. And of course, you could guess the county does not want that to pass, right? So but there's more municipalities, there's more cities than there are, counties in Palm Beach County. So we don't like to go head to head with our county partners, but in this case, we really need to. So any support from the residents right now is the time, because like I said, it's a game changer for us. It's either SB 668 or 668. And I think we can probably get that for you. All right. I wasn't going to speak, but I just felt like that was really important because it's up there right now.
And Vice Mayor, we really appreciate it. Very salient points. We have our discussions, of course, in these regards, and he's absolutely correct. This will.
Got it.
Thank you. Something we have to deal with, and quite frankly, it is an issue and a challenge for the reasons that Vice Mayor Boylston pointed out. Hopefully, we'll be able to achieve some modicum of success and be able to do as best as we can for our municipality, the city of Delray Beach. Any other questions, thoughts, or feedback anyone may wish to offer? Thank you. So if not, ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate everybody being here. And once again, I would like to encourage your participation in the feedback documentation that's being facilitated by Director of Communications, Gina Carter, because again, we wish to do as much as we possibly can to improve on our opportunities to engage and connect with the community, provide background, provide feedback and information pertinent to your overall quality of life as we all live, work, and represent the city of Delray Beach, Florida. With that, I would like to once again thank our three panelists, Director of Development Services, Anthea Gianniotes, Fire Rescue Chief Keith Tomey, Lewis Keith Tomey III, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, Director of Public Works, Missie Barletto. Excellent presentations, excellent information. And once again, let's look forward to Thursday, April 25th, 2024. Big focus relative to sustainability and resiliency, and some of the points that were raised by many of you all as residents, stakeholders, actually fall within that particular framework. So good information. Thank you all very much for your time and attendance. Much appreciated. Take care and stay well. Good night.